Before we dive into this thrilling story of secrets, suspense, and unexpected romance, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our captivating stories. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this one. Amara's fingers froze over her keyboard at 2:47 a.m. The Korean characters on her screen blurred as her heart began to pound. She read the sentence again, then a third time, her translator's instinct screaming that something was catastrophically wrong. Initiate Shadow Protocol 17. Transfer package to secondary node before morning verification cycle. The words were embedded in what should have been a routine financial projection for Novatech's third-quarter investor report. But Amara had translated enough corporate documents in her 5 years as a freelance Korean translator to know that legitimate financial reports didn't contain phrases like shadow protocol or secondary node. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the rest of the document, finding 3 more suspicious passages carefully woven into dense paragraphs about profit margins and market expansion. She grabbed her phone and checked the original file metadata. The document had been sent to her by Novatech's usual project coordinator, but the modification timestamp showed changes made after she'd received it and before she'd submitted her translation. Someone had accessed her work mid-process and inserted these instructions, using her translations as a carrier for what could only be corporate espionage. No, Amara whispered, her mind racing. If this was discovered, she would be the obvious suspect. Her name was on every translated document. Her digital fingerprints were all over the files. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead as she imagined her carefully built reputation destroyed, her career ended before it had truly begun. She thought of her mother's pride when she'd landed the Novatech contract, her first major client. She thought of the rent due next week, the equipment she'd saved months to buy. Amara spent the next 3 hours meticulously documenting everything, taking screenshots, noting timestamps, comparing linguistic patterns. The inserted phrases had a strange quality, like Korean written by Somyeon who knew the language technically, but missed the natural rhythm native speakers used. She saved everything to 3 separate cloud drives and barely slept, her mind churning with fear and anger. The video call notification from Park Jin-woo came at 9:15 a.m. sharp, 3 hours earlier than their scheduled weekly check-in. Amara's stomach dropped as she accepted the call and Jin-woo's face appeared on screen. His usually composed features were tight with barely controlled fury, his dark eyes cold in a way she'd never seen during their 6 months of professional correspondence. "Miss Okonkwo," he said, his voice clipped and formal. "We have a serious problem, Mr. Park, I know about the breach," Amara said quickly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I discovered it last night and I've been documenting everything. You've been documenting evidence of your own crime," Jin-woo interrupted, his jaw clenched. "Our Securitytem detected unauthorized code transfers last night. The trail leads directly to documents you translated, 23 separate instances over the past 2 months. Our proprietary payment encryption algorithm have been systematically copied to an external server, and every single transfer correlates with your translation submissions." "I didn't do this," Amara said firmly, fighting the panic rising in her chest. "Someone is using my work as a vehicle. Look, I can show you exactly what I found." She began sharing her screen, but Jin-woo held up a hand. "Convenient that you discovered this the same night our security detected the breach," he said. "My board of directors is demanding I involve law enforcement immediately. They want to terminate all contracts with Nigerian vendors and pull our Lagos operations entirely. Do you understand the damage you've caused?" "The damage I've caused?" Amara's fear crystallized into anger. "Mr. Park, I've worked on every single one of your documents with absolute integrity. I've stayed up past midnight to meet your deadlines. I've turned down other clients to prioritize your projects. And now you're accusing me of stealing from you without even looking at evidence." Something in her voice made Jin-woo pause. He leaned back slightly, his expression still guarded but the immediate fury dimming to cold assessment. "Show me," he said finally. Amara shared her screen and walked him through her findings, her translator's eye highlighting the linguistic inconsistencies that had first alerted her. She showed him how the Korean phrasing in the suspicious passage was technically correct, but stylistically wrong. using formal grammar structures in contexts where native speakers would use casual forms, missing the subtle honorific nuances that came naturally to someone raised in Korean culture. "Here," she said, pointing to a phrase. "This uses hapseochi formality in an internal technical memo. No Korean company would write this way internally." It's like someone learned Korean from a textbook, but never actually worked in a Korean office. And look at this timestamp. The document was modified 47 minutus after you sent it to me, but before I submitted my translation. I never saw these passages in the original file. Jin-woo's eyes narrowed as he leaned closer to his screen, studying the details she'd highlighted. She watched his expression shift from suspicion to concentration, his analytical mind clearly engaging with the evidence. He was silent for a long moment, then he pulled up what appeared to be server logs on another screen. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "then someone with administrator access to our project management system is intercepting documents during the translation workflow. They would need to know our processes intimately, know exactly when you received files and when you typically submitted them." "Exactly," Amara said, feeling a small rush of relief that he was actually listening. "And they'd need to be fluent enough in Korean to insert instructions, but not native enough to match natural speech patterns. How manipopple in your company fit that profile?" Jin-woo ran a hand through his hair, the first gesture of uncertainty she'd seen from him. 3, maybe 4 senior staff members, but these are people I've worked with for years, some since I founded the company." His voice carried a note of betrayal that softened Amara's anger slightly. This wasn't just about business for him. This was personal. "No, you don't trust me right now," Amara said quietly. "But I'm the only person who can help you catch whoever is doing this. I understand the linguistic patterns, I know the translation workflow, and I have just as much to lose as you do. My entire career depends on my reputation for integrity." Jin-woo studied her through the screen for a long moment, and Amara forced herself to meet his gaze steadily despite the exhaustion pulling at her. Finally, he nodded once, a sharp, decisive movement. 48 hours, he said. "I'll hold off the board and our security team for 48 hours. But if we don't find concrete evidence of the real culprit by then, I'll have no choice but to report this to authorities and let them investigate." He paused, then added more quietly, "I want to believe you, Miss Okonkwo. Your work has always been impeccable. But I have 200 employees depending on this company's survival, and investors ready to pull funding at the first hint of instability." "I understand," Amara said. "And Mr. Park, thank you for giving me a chance to prove my innocence." After the call ended, Amara sat back in her chair, adrenaline still coursing through her system. 48 hours to find a corporate spy and save her career. She should have been terrified, but instead she felt a strange sense of purpose. She'd been underestimated her entire career, people assuming that a translator from Lagos couldn't possibly match the skills of translators in Seoul or Tokyo or New York. Now she had a chance to prove exactly what she was capable of. The next video call came 6 hours later, after both of them had spent the time deep in digital forensics. Jin-woo looked exhausted, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled, his tie loosened. Amara suspected she looked nobbitter, still in the same clothes from the morning, her natural hair pulled back in a hasty bun. "I have the server logs from the past 3 months, Jin-woo said without preamble. "Cross-referencing with your translation submission times. There's a pattern here, but I need your help to understand it." They worked through the data together, Amara explaining her typical workflow while Jin-woo mapped it against the system access logs. Slowly, a picture emerged. The document interceptions always happened during a specific 4-hour window that aligned with both Lagos evening hours and Seoul late-night hours, a narrow overlap when most employees in both offices would be offline. "Whoever this is, they're in a time zone that allows them to work during this window comfortably," Amara observed. "Or they're deliberately staying up late to avoid detection. They have senior-level system access," Jin-woo added. "The logs show administrator credentials, which means C-suite or senior technical staff." He pulled up a list of names, and Amara saw his jaw tighten. "The SEER people I've known for years. My CTO has been my friend since university. My CFO helped me secure our first round of funding." "Of them is stealing from you," Amara said gently. "I know that's hard to accept." Jin-woo looked at her through the screen, his expression raw in a way that surprised her. In their 6 months off working together, he'd always maintained perfect professional distance. Now she was seeing behind the CE facade to the person underneath, someone who was hurt and betrayed and trying to hold his company together. "Tell me about Lagos," he said suddenly. "I've been working with Nigerian partners for 2 years, but I've never visited. I've only ever seen your office through video calls." Change of subject was jarring, but Amara understood the need for a mental break. "What do you want, Tano?" "Why translation? Why Korean specifically?" Amara smiled slightly. "I studied linguistics at the University of Lagos. I was fascinated by tonal languages, syntax structures, how language shapes thought. Korean caught my attention because of the tech-industry connections between Korea and Africa. I saw an opportunity to build something unique." She paused, then decided to be honest. "And because I was tired of people assuming African translators were somehow less skilled than our Asian or European counterparts. I wanted to prove them wrong." "You've succeeded," Jin-woo said quietly. "Your translations have been the best I've worked with, including translators in Seoul. You understand not just the language but the business context, the cultural nuances." He rubbed his eyes tiredly. "Which is why this situation makes no sense. If you wanted to steal from me, you've had countless opportunities over 6 months. Why would you suddenly leave such obvious traces?" "You're starting to believe me," Amara said, relief flooding through her. "I'm starting to think logically instead of emotionally," Jin-woo corrected, but there was a hint of warmth in his voice. "Now let's catch whoever is actually responsible. If you're enjoying this story of intrigue and unlikely partnership, show some love by hitting that like button. And drop a comment below telling us what you think is going to happen next." They worked through the night, Lagos evening bleeding into Seoul morning. Amara learned that Jin-woo had founded Novatech 5 years ago after leaving a secure position at a major Korean tech conglomerate, betting everything on his vision of connecting Korean innovation with African markets. He told her about the pressure from his family in Seoul, traditional people who thought he was crazy to focus on Africa instead of established markets. He spoke about sleepless nights wondering if he'd made the right choice, the constant battle to prove to investors that African tech partnerships were the future, not a risky experiment. "My father still tells his friends I work somewhere in Africa, like it's all one country," Jin-woo said with a tired laugh. "He doesn't understand why I didn't just take over his manufacturing company like he wanted. My mother doesn't understand why I didn't become a medical doctor like she wanted," Amara countered. "She tells her church group I work with computers, which is close enough for her. Translation doesn't sound impressive enough." "I think what you do is impressive," Jin-woo said, meeting her eyes through the screen. "The way you caught those linguistic inconsistencies, how you noticed patterns in the Korean that I missed as a native speaker, that's not just translation skills, that's investigative instinct." Amara felt warmth spread through her chest at the genuine admiration in his voice. "Thank you. That means a lot, especially from you." They caught each other's gaze and held it for a moment too long to be purely professional. Then Jin-woo cleared his throat and returned his attention to the data, but Amara noticed a slight smile playing at his lips. By hour 36 of their 48-hour deadline, they had narrowed the suspects to 2 people. Kim Min-jun, the CTO who had been Jin-woo's friend since their university days, and Lee Soo-young, the CFO who had joined the company in its first year. Both had the technical access, both had the linguistic skills, and both worked hours that aligned with the interception window. "We need to set a trap," Amara said. "Create fake documents with information too valuable to resist. See how takes the bait." Jin-woo nodded slowly. "I'll create a fake internal memo about our new encryption algorithm, supposedly revolutionary technology that would be worth millions to competitors. Make it look like a legitimate document I'm sending you for translation. I'll add linguistic markers to my translation," Amara added, her mind racing with the technical details. "Specific phrasings unique to my style that can't be duplicated. If the document is intercepted and modified, we'll be able to prove it through stylistic analysis." They spent the next 4 hours crafting the perfect trap, Jin-woo creating a convincingly technical memo, while Amara prepared her translation strategy. They worked with the easy coordination of partners who had collaborated for much longer than they actually had, finishing each other's thoughts, anticipating needs before were voiced. "Upload it to the system at 11 p.m. Lagos time," Jin-woo instructed. That's 6 a.m. in Seoul, right in the middle offer suspect's usual window. I'll be monitoring the server logs in real time. Jin-woo, Amara said, using his first name without the formal honorific for the first time. He looked up, surprised. Thank you for believing me. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for being innocent, he replied with a slight smile. And for being brilliant enough to prove it. Call me if anything seems wrong during the upload. Amara's heart was pounding as she uploaded the fake document at exactly 11 p.m. She kept her computer monitoring tools running, watching for any unauthorized access. Jin-woo was connected on video call, silent but present, both of them staring at their respective screens with intense focus. 37 minutes passed. Then her screen flickered almost imperceptibly, a split-second lag that most people would have missed. Amara's breath caught. Woo, someone just accessed the file. On the video call, she saw Jin-woo's face go pale as he stared at his server logs. It's Min-jun, he said, his face hollow. It's my CTO, my friend. He looked stricken, and Amara's heart ached for him even as her own relief flooded through her. They had their culprit. I'm sorry, Amara said softly. Jin-woo was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Then his expression hardened with resolve. Track every move he makes with that file. Document everything. I want irrefutable evidence before I confront him. His voice was steady, but Amara could hear the pain underneath. And Amara, I need to come to Lagos. This is too important to handle remotely. You don't have to. Yes, I do, Jin-woo interrupted. This started in Lagos, it should end in Lagos, and… He paused, then met her eyes through the screen with an intensity that made her breath catch. I want to meet you in person. I think we both know this has become about more than just business. Amara's pulse quickened. Yes, she said simply. I'd like that too. Jin-woo arrived in Lagos 3 days later, and Amara met him at the Novatech office in Victoria Island. She'd only ever seen him through a screen, sitting in various offices in Seoul. Seeing him in person was different, more real, the careful distance they'd maintained for months suddenly impossible to keep. He was taller than expected, his business suit perfectly tailored, but there was weariness in his eyes that made her want to reach out and offer comfort. Miss Okonkwo, he said formally, but his eyes were warm. Mr. Park, she replied with a small smile. Ready to catch a spy? They had continued monitoring Min-jun's activities over the past 3 days, watching as he attempted to sell the fake encryption algorithm to a competing company. The evidence was overwhelming, documented from multiple angles. Jin-woo had arranged for a meeting with Min-jun at the Lagos office, ostensibly to discuss the Nigerian expansion, but actually to confront him with proof of his betrayal. Min-jun arrived 30 minutes later, surprised to see Jin-woo in Lagos, but covering it with professional warmth. He was in his early 30s like Jin-woo, with an easy smile and confident bearing. Amara watched from an adjacent office through a video feed as the two men greeted each other in Korean, old friends with years off history. I didn't expect you in Lagos, Min-jun said in Korean, which Amara translated in real time for the legal team monitoring remotely. I needed to handle some sensitive matters personally, Jin-woo replied, his voice giving nothing away. Min-jun, we've been friends for over a decade. I trusted you with my company's future, so I want to give you a chance to explain yourself before I involve the authorities. Min-jun's smile faltered. What are you talking about? Jin-woo placed a tablet on the desk between them, showing the documented evidence of file interceptions, code transfers, and Min-jun's attempted sale of the fake algorithm. Amara watched Min-jun's face cycle through shock, fear, and finally resignation. Long have you known? Min-jun asked quietly, switching to English. 3 days for cert. We've been documenting everything since. Jin-woo's voice was steady, but Amara could see his hands clenched into fists. Why? Was it money? Did someone blackmail you? Help me understand how my closest friend could steal from me for 2 months. Min-jun laughed bitterly. You really don't see it, do you? You started Novatech with my technical expertise. My code, my architecture, my late nights building systems while you charmed investors and made deals. But when the company succeeded, you became the celebrated CEO while I stayed in the background as just another employee. I have gambling debts, yes, but more than that, I wanted recognition. I wanted what was mine. What was yours? Jin-woo's voice rose with anger. You had equity, a generous salary, the title of CTO. I gave you credit in every interview, every presentation. What more did you want? Everything you have, Min-jun said simply. The investor meetings, the media attention, the respect. Instead, I get to watch you trust some translator in Lagos more than you trusted me. You flew here for her, not for your oldest friend. Jin-woo stood abruptly. I flew here because you were stealing from my company and I needed to handle it personally. And you're right about one thing, I do trust Amara more than I trust you now. She proved her integrity while you proved your betrayal. He pulled out his phone. The authorities are waiting outside. I've documented everything needed for prosecution. Our friendship is over, Minjun. Amara watched as Nigerian police entered the office. As Minjun was led away in handcuffs, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Jin-woo stood motionless for a long moment after they left, his shoulders tense with emotion. Then he walked to the adjacent office where Amara waited, his professional mask finally cracking. It's done, he said quietly. I'm sorry it had to be someone close to you, Amara said. Standing to face him, he was right about one thing, Jin-woo said, taking a step closer to her. I do trust you. More than I've trusted Anion in a long time. You could have run when I accused you. You could have deleted evidence to save yourself. Instead, you fought to prove the truth and you helped me save my company. He reached out hesitantly, and Amara met him halfway, their fingers interlacing. I came to Lagos for business, but that's not why I'm still standing here. Are you still standing here? Amara asked, her heart racing. Because somewhere between 2 a.m. video calls and arguing over linguistic nuances, I started falling for you, Jin-woo admitted. And I think you might feel the same way. Amara smiled, squeezing his hand. I definitely feel the same way, but you live in Seoul and I live in Lagos and we have only met in person once. How do we make this work? I have an idea about that, Jin-woo said. Novatech needs a chief language officer to head our Korean African business division. Someone who understands both cultures, who can bridge our markets linguistically and culturally. Someone brilliant, trustworthy, and brave enough to take on a challenge. He looked at her intently. The position would be based in Lagos with quarterly trips to Seoul. It's yours if you want it, but only if you want to try making this work between us two. I won't let business pressure you into a relationship. If the relationship pressures me into taking the job, Amara teased, but her voice was thick with emotion. Jin-woo, I'd love both. The job and the chance to see where this goes between us. He smiled then, a genuine expression of joy that transformed his usually serious face. Then I suppose we're taking a gambit together. No more hiding behind professional distance. More hiding, Amara agreed, and when he leaned down to kiss her, she met him halfway, 6 months off careful restraint finally breaking into something real and possible and thrilling. 6 months later, Amara stood on stage at the Seoul Tech Innovation Conference, presenting Novatech's new cross-cultural business model to an audience of hundreds. She spoke in flawless Korean about bridging markets, building trust across borders, and the power of clear communication in an interconnected world. In that front row, Jin-woo watched with obvious pride and affection, no longer bothering to hide their relationship from professional circles. After the presentation, they met outside the conference center, and Jin-woo took her hand naturally as they walked through Seoul's bustling Gangnam district. The long-distance relationship had been challenging, the cultural differences real, the logistics complicated. But the trust they'd built during their crisis had become the foundation for something deeper, something worth fighting for. My father wants to meet you next week, Jin-woo said. Fair warning, he's going to be skeptical about everything from your job to our relationship to the fact that I still insist Africa is the future of tech. I can handle skeptical fathers, Amara said confidently. I convinced a suspicious CEO to trust me while he was accusing me of corporate espionage. I think I can win over one traditional Korean businessman. Jin-woo laughed and pulled her closer. I never doubted it. You win over everyone eventually. You certainly won me over. That was the easy part, Amara teased. You were half in love with me before you ever met me in person. All those late-night translation sessions, pretending it was just business. Says the woman who dressed up for video calls even though she claimed she didn't care what I thought, Jin-woo countered. They walked together through the city lights, two people from different worlds who had found each other through words, trust, and a shared willingness to gamble on something uncertain. The translator and the CEO, the woman from Lagos and the man from Seoul, building something new together, one translated word, one act of faith, one chosen trust at a time. If this story of trust, betrayal, and unexpected love kept you hooked until the end, Make sure you resubscribe to our channel for more captivating stories every week. Hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments about what you'd do in Amara's situation, and share this story with someone who loves a good romance thriller. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.